Congressman Robert Hurt, Republican, 5th District, South Side of Virginia. Congressman, sorry about that. We're kind of fired up here now. Good to have you with us.
Good to be with you, John, and thanks for your good reporting from Iowa.
Listen, you just heard that Clinton clip. I mean, I couldn't believe it. We were not at Drake University last night. I was here with the Sanders campaign. I've been covering that in depth. I mean, he's got 2,500 people that show up at his victory party last night. They're fired up. This guy, once he gets out of the South, he's going to win New Hampshire. He's going to start winning Rust Belt states. I think he's going to win in the Pac West. And she's acting as if she's running against Ted Cruz. What's the deal?
Yeah, I thought it was fascinating to watch. I thought it was interesting that she came out first and that she decided to take the stage in advance, which is typically what losers do, to concede. And then, of course, she never did concede, but she never really claimed victory either. It was interesting to watch sort of the picture, I thought, on the television. I wasn't there live like you, but it was interesting to watch the image of her up there, very feisty and combative and defensive, and then having old Bill in the background, sort of with his jaw half open.
Did you see that? I can't believe. Yeah. Congressman, I can't believe you said that because I was not at her thing live. I saw it on TV. But to see her husband in the background with that's right, with his jaw down and all surly. You know what? I thought the same thing, and I'm like, well, maybe it's just me because I don't really like the guy. But I think you're right. I would get him off the stage. I think he's horrible for her.
But I do think that however, that obviously them coming out first, in my mind, suggested that they made a political calculation that early enough that this is whether we eke it out a win or not, the bottom line is this is a big loser and we need to get off the stage as soon as possible, and that was certainly the sense that I got. And I think it certainly bodes well for those of us who want to see a Republican elected, because obviously the fact that she's on the ropes this early. Granted, she's going to have some considerable strength down the stretch, but as you point out, certainly Sanders is going to the momentum. The winner is going to be, I think, ultimately, like in most campaigns, the candidate with the momentum. And
well, Congressman, let's talk about the Republican side last night. I mean, I basically saw 3 winners. I want to get your take. Obviously, Ted Cruz had to win Iowa. He turned his people out, carries the state by 6,000, had a great organization here, spent a lot of money, and did what he had to do. He had to win Iowa. He did that last night. Trump finishing a respectable second, and a lot of people doubted whether or not his people would turn out. They turned out. Maybe not to the extent that they thought they would, but I think it was a good night for Trump. He really needed to finish second in Iowa because he got a big lead in New Hampshire. And then, but look, Marco Rubio came from nowhere. He was at 10% a week ago and closed, didn't have the organization, didn't spend the money, didn't spend the time. So he's got to feel very, very excited coming out of Iowa. And now, do you think at the end of the day it's going to be establishment Cruz? I'm sorry, establishment Rubio versus Trump Cruz? What do you think?
Yeah, I think that that's certainly looks the way it's setting up now. We'll see what happens in New Hampshire. Clearly, Rubio was a huge winner last night, and obviously Cruz demonstrated his tremendous organization. We've been hearing from the get-go that he had been putting together methodically his network in Iowa over the last year, and he really showed his stuff. And but I think the thing that's most interesting is the fact that 180,000 people showed up. That to me shows, number one, that we are in an election cycle that is all about throwing out the status quo, which I think we all agree is necessary and exciting. And then the second thing is clearly the enthusiasm. I mean, good gracious, you stop and think about. I think they shattered. That those records were shattered by, in terms of turnout, by tens of thousands of votes. And if we can see that sort of enthusiasm on the Republican side between now and November, that hopefully means that we're going to have a good night.
Look, the previous high turnout was 125,000. So they got 180,000 out last night. That's virtually a 50% increase. That's a huge number over what they had, Congressman. And that does have to bode well for the Republicans, no doubt, regardless of who the nominee is going forward.
And it's interesting because, as you know, we're going to have a couple of congressional races on the ballot. That could be very interesting to see how that impacts in Virginia.
Now, Congressman, speaking of congressional races, you have decided to retire. We're sorry about that, and we know when a new Republican president is inaugurated in January of 2017, you might be regretting your decision, because then you could have actually got something accomplished. So you might be going to say, "Oh, maybe I should have just stayed." But what's going on in your district? Are you going to make an endorsement?
Well, and thank you for your kind words. We have no regrets. We won't have any regrets. Obviously, anytime you make a decision like that, you have to think about all the possibilities, but you also have to make a decision based on the facts that you know. And I'm very excited about the future of this country. With the possibility of a new president, I think Paul Ryan represents some significant change in the House in terms of the way we get things done, and I'm looking forward to working with him for the next 12 months to try to make that a reality. As far as the election in the 5th, obviously, I have been the beneficiary of the good choices of the people of the 5th District over the last 5.5 years, and been some portion of the 5th District for the last 15 years. And so I'm certainly not going to try to second-guess the decisions in terms of the nomination method, which will be chosen, I think, in short order. And then, obviously, we will have a Republican nominee at some point. And when that happens, I look forward to supporting that person.
All right. Well, I'm going to say, and I've said this on the record, Tom Garrett right now, the overwhelming favorite to be the nominee. Of course, we don't even know what the nominating process is right now in the 5th. They still haven't decided that. So I guess after that, but I think Senator Tom Garrett, definitely the man to beat. That's just my political narrative. And, of course, I thought Trump was going to win last night, so I was down on that. So I did predict that. And when I saw that turnout, I'm like, this thing's over. Trump's going to win. So Cruz and Rubio getting a lot of brand new people. Mm-hmm. So not all these new people turned out for Trump. They turned out for all three candidates, which I think bodes well on the GOP side, no doubt. We're with Congressman Robert Hurt, Republican 5th District. That is the south side of Virginia, and he is going to be retiring. So after 3 terms, and we're sad to see him go, he's going to be missed. Congressman, I want to get to the trade deal, Trans-Pacific trade deal. It's now, it keeps leaking out, this thing looking more like it does very little for U.S. middle-of-the-road workers. Have you made a decision on it?
I haven't. We have said from the very get-go that, that what's going to guide me is going to be what's best for the people of the 5th District, and obviously that goes without saying that I would never support anything that in any way gave up U.S. sovereignty or violated our constitutional principles. So that's the first step, and then the second step is what's the best thing for the economy. I don't see a path to having that on the docket. Certainly not in the near term. And there's been some discussion about maybe the president would try to make it put it on the docket during a lame duck session, which I think would be a terrible idea and regrettable. Because obviously you're not dealing with what necessarily what the will of the people is. So, but we'll keep an eye on that, and obviously, again, I'm not going to support anything that I don't think is in the interest of the people of the 5th District.
Congressman, were you at all surprised by Scott Ridgell's announcement that he was also going to retire after 3 terms?
Yeah, I guess I was, but I guess, Scott and I were elected the same year.
Right.
Both took out incumbents, and both were a part of a class that took the gap away from Nancy Pelosi. And I'm very proud to have been able to work with him. And but on the other side, I think for those of us who are in public service, because we believe that it's our responsibility to contribute, but it's not a career. I think I think when you look at it in that perspective, I think that he I think he embodies that. I think as a citizen legislator, and that's certainly in the spirit in which I've tried to serve, and he I know shares that. So to that. And I'm not surprised, but I am sorry, because I think certainly he brought a tremendous amount of judgment and experience and wisdom to the job.
Well, he's going to be missed, no question, and there's also a huge battle going on in that final question. And I've only got a minute. No Supreme Court stay on the new redistricting. A lot of people found that surprising, but it's interesting. When I had you on last month, I asked you that, and you said you can't ever predict what this Supreme Court is going to do. Were you at all surprised that there is no stay in the new district's hold?
Well, I'm disappointed, because I fear that it suggests that the court is not interested in straightening out what I think is just a misinterpretation of the law. I think the lawsuit is baseless. I've said so from the beginning. I think that you had a duly passed Justice Department, Obama administration Justice Department Justice Department approving the plan that the General Assembly adopted, by the will of the people, and you have people who were sore losers at the ballot box who want to undo elections and rewrite the rules, and that's what this lawsuit represents. And I'm very sorry to see that it's gotten as far as it has. I don't think it's not, certainly not in keeping with what I think the people of Virginia wanted when they drew the plan in the first instance.
All right, Congressman Robert Hurt, we're out of time. We want to thank Congressman Robert Hurt for being with us. 5th District Congressman, hang in there.